collectors, monster lovers, and horror freaks of all walks of afterlife. It's time once again for Creepy Cheapies with Dr. Lady, where we look for the best in Halloween masks. I'm Dagwood Bumstead, and tonight's mask, or today's, depending on when you're watching this, is another great one from Zagoni's. It's the Sentinel. Now, you may not know, but way back in 1976, there was a movie called The Sentinel, and it had lots of big stars in it. It had, let me see, Chris Sarandon, it had Eli Wallach, Christopher Walken, Burgess Meredith, Beverly D'Angelo, lots of big stars in it. This mask has absolutely nothing to do with that movie, so forget all about that. This is not that Sentinel, this is just a Sentinel from Zagoni. Now, the great thing about the Sentinel that you see here, he was sculpted by the phenomenally talented and legendary sculptor for Zagoni, Bill Eastrom. And he was originally done way back in the day. Now, usually when old masks are reissued, there's a little bit of fanfare there, and they're called like retro edition or something for collectors. But this one slipped under the radar of a lot of people and came back in 2018, the Sentinel, in a slightly different version. The good news is it's the same mold, the same exact face, the same sculpture as the original Sentinel, which came out in 1979, I believe. A long time ago. Now, that version was a little different. What are the differences between the 1979 one that was available back in the early 80s and the 2018 version, which you see before you, looking at you right here? This particular Sentinel has a sort of tan flesh tone to him, all right? Sort of tan skin. The original Sentinel kind of varied between yellow highlights and blue shadows. He tended to look yellow and bluish, sometimes with more or less blue, sometimes with more or less yellow, sometimes with more red in the shading. So the color was a little different. The other big difference was that the hoods on the ones from back in the late 70s, 1979, early 80s. Can we fix that in editing? We can't? Okay, I'll just go on. Though the hoods on the old Sentinel, the original version, were made of that really high quality plush, that really thick, really nice plush, instead of just plain black cloth like the ones today. Although I don't say that in a disparaging or derisive way, this is perfectly good fabric for your costume. It's not cheap and skimpy fabric. It just isn't super deluxe and plush. The other difference in the hood is it's a different hood pattern. The original Sentinel masks back in the day had a tight fitted hood that was fastened all the way around his face, glued down all the way around his face. It had sort of a widow's peak going on here, and it was sort of like an executioner's hood, not like the hoods that used to go with the hooded fang face and the hooded skull and the hooded warlock and those other old hood wearing masks. This one was more of an executioner hood. And how do I know that? Well, I remember, but if you look carefully, if you take the hood, peel the hood back, you can actually see the glue line that was intended to be where that bigger hood would have been glued down. It's actually sculpted into the mask going around there. So you can see that's where the hood went. Looking at that in the rubber, if you look back at this and just look at the rubber, you might think there was a fur piece, like a wig, or like hair that went on there. But there really wasn't hair, there was really just the fabric hood. What a great sculpture this is, But you can get the new version for around 60 bucks, I believe, from the Zagoni website. And by the way, for those of you who aren't hip to this sort of thing, Zagoni was known back in those days as Be Something Studio. And it was the same people in charge, but they later changed the name from Be Something Studio to Zagoni Studios, which is what it's called today. So you can get one of these for around 60, 65 bucks, and I think it's great because in the first place it's cool for collectors because it's an old mask, it's an old design from back when you were young, back when you were still alive in some cases. And it's also cool because it's just a nice mask even if you don't know what it is and don't know the history behind it. The hood is nice quality and there's a strap across the back to make it fit right. So the eye line up, the line of vision in this is really good. It really fits to your face well, so it's a good one to be able to wear. It doesn't fasten it at the front. This doesn't come together at the bottom like it does on some masks. If you know somebody who can sew, you could have them put a snap or a button or a little piece of Velcro or something on there if you want that, but it really doesn't need it because it kind of looks right just draping down. Now there is in fact a third version of the Sentinel that was available as of the time of this video recording. That one was a handmade collector edition, which is different yet from either of the previous two. Was available for about 300 bucks. That one has a blue face with kind of pink highlighting, but he's predominantly blue. What you really see is blue when you look at him. And he has the super high quality hood, like the ones back in the late 70s, early 80s. But he doesn't have the fitted hood that's glued down to all these points around here like I was telling you. He has a hood of the type worn by the hooded skull and the hooded fang face. So it's the big deluxe, really generous hood that comes out and fastens beneath the chin with a little patch of Velcro and like that. But anyway, the Sentinel. And what is he the Sentinel of? I don't know. He could be the Sentinel of a haunted graveyard or a crypt, a haunted tomb, something like that, right? A creepy old mansion. You know what? No, you know what I think he's the Sentinel of? I think he's employed at an old crumbling medieval castle, an old stone castle in Europe, France, I think. Yeah, I see him hovering around the drafty halls of an old crumbling stone castle in France. And well, if he's supposed to be haunting a castle in France, you may ask yourself, how did he get here? Well, maybe somebody read some conjuring, translations that they shouldn't have and summoned him up. But if you want to summon one up for your collection, you just have to go online and go to either Zagoni's or look on Amazon or Evil Bay or someplace like that and score a Sentinel mask just like this one. Goodbye!